All right, everyone. Thank you for attending the Q&A with Alan and Marshall. I'm Marshall Atkinson, and this obviously is not Alan Howe. This is my good buddy Davis Slagle with B Graphics. How you doing today, Davis?
Great. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Alan can't be here today, so Davis is filling in. He's like our relief pitcher. And of course, if you know Davis, everything is about DTF, but we're going to talk about that, but not exclusively, because he runs his business just like you, and we're going to share a whole bunch of other things also. So Davis, why don't you talk about your business a little bit, because maybe not everybody knows who you are, and just kind of give us the skinny on, B Graphics.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Davis Slagle, and we run B Graphics just south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We were a one auto, one manual, old embroidery equipment company until we sold it all. We are now running direct films in-house, and we are doing it pretty well, I think. That required us to change everything, and it's been an exciting journey for us.
Yeah, you've made a lot of improvements, and you're constantly looking at things, and you're probably one of the most forward-thinking companies that I know of. You're really thinking, 2 or 3, 4 years ahead, not just like, what are we doing next week? You're always like thinking about something, and that's really kind of a fun thing. And we can maybe get into some of that later, right? But what I want to do right now is just say hello to some folks. And if you're watching right now, there's some things that we want you to do. You got a little homework, okay? We want you to sign in and say hello, because we want to know where everybody's from and what they're doing. And also, don't forget that this is a Q&A show, so we want you to ask your questions, okay? Davis is here for a reason. He has really done a lot with DTF, and if you're thinking about DTF, this is the guy to talk to. Okay, so, and if you were at Long Beach last year, you might remember that Davis and I taught a class at Long Beach, and we had about, 160-something people in that class, I think. And
yeah,
it was a lot of fun. And so this isn't the first time we've been talking about this stuff together. So, but anyway, so make sure that you ask your questions, okay? So let's go ahead and say hey to some folks. So Richard's here from Michigan. Good seeing you, Richard. And Charles is here. Good seeing you as well. Ray's here. Good seeing you, Ray. And another Ray Smith's here. And then Frank's here. Davis in the house. Happy Friday, right?
Hey, Frank.
Good seeing you also, Frank. And Frank's from SNS. And Ray's from Aviant, right? So we got like industry supply folks and commenting. So that's kind of cool, right? So, and speaking of Aviant, I want to show the first thing is the Prints That Pop contest that GSG is doing. And of course, if you haven't seen this, we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, but if you haven't seen this, it's not too late to sign up. And what they really want you to do is give Specialty Inks a try, right? So if you go to the GSG website, which is just Go GSG, you can click on their banner and you'll see this Prints That Pop kind of thing. And then what you'll see is they've got the top 3 participants. First place is $2,500. Second place is $1,500, and third place is $1,000, right? And you've got to get your entry in by December the 22nd, I think, right? And so that you've got a couple weeks left. Okay, here's the address. Send it to Mark in GSG in Dallas, right? And then you need to send in 6 samples. Okay, and even if you haven't used Specialty Inks before, don't be discouraged. Don't be embarrassed. Just do it, just to learn how to do it. And here at the bottom, they've got a big list of any of these you can use. Glow in the dark, shimmer base, all these metallics, all types of puff and flock and stretch and all types of stuff. They just want you to learn how to use this stuff. So I think this is one of the best ways that you can learn how to do things is just to go ahead, take a design, try to put some of this stuff in it and send it in. And of course, shops like Davis can't do it because he's all DTF, right? But maybe he could get his contractor to do it for him, right? So this is all really about how you're using the ink, right? And so I think this is an excellent thing to do. And if you've got any questions or anything, just give us a holler. Also, Ray is here, who works for Aviant. If you've got any questions about the inks or anything, just drop a note in there, and I'm sure Ray would be more than happy to help you, right? So
I miss that fun stuff.
No, you should still do it, man. You should still do it, right? So, right. So some other folks have joined us. So Mike's here. Happy Friday. Good seeing you. Dean's here. Happy Friday, fellas. It's freaking December again already. Yeah, I know. Dan's here. Hey, Dan, how's it going? Infinite Effects. Lots of fun, of course. And look, Artem's here. Let's talk about a guy who does a lot of crazy specialty stuff. It's
Mr. Specialty.
Right? And good seeing you, right? And then Karen's here. Hey, Karen, good seeing you. Okay. So anyway, thanks for chiming in and saying hello. If you haven't done that, please say hello or anything, and we will get to you. Oh, first question. Is all of B Graphics outsourced for their production needs? So why don't you talk about that real quick?
I believe he's asking me, do we outsource everything? Or is that how you took it?
Well, you do DTF in-house. So you got,
correct.
Let's say you get 1,000 shirt order. You're not doing that DTF, right? So what do you guys do?
Yeah, so we have thresholds where it's screen to color count. And depending on what number it is, we will use one of our partners and contract it out. It's hard to bring in 1,000 pieces. It's doable, but it throws a wrench into everything else we're doing when we do that.
Yeah. So it's really just about knowing your limitations and then making it work for the profit that you want to hit.
Also knowing what you have in the pipeline that you need to get decorated. That
right.
We'll jump on this a little bit later.
Yeah. Great. Okay, cool. Hopefully, Dean, that answered your question, right? So let's get to the first topic, which is DTF. So Davis, here's the burning question that I see everywhere I go. I see DTF. We were at Printing United, and I haven't confirmed this, but I think there was like 80 DTF machines on the show floor there. You couldn't throw a rock or swing a dead cat without hitting a DTF machine, right? So here's the question. Is DTF taking over?
Absolutely not. The only thing it's taking over are the orders that screen printers complained about for decades.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
That is a 12-piece, 6-color artwork, a 18-piece, 5-color front, 2-color back, right? Stuff that was terrible to set up time-wise, screen-wise. All of the headaches are now, you're going to see that transition, in my opinion.
Right.
So it has its own place in it, not quite yet. It's not fully adopted, but you're going to see a shift where orders under certain values are done one way, and which is going to free up the screen printers to do more of the big orders. So there's a give and take on that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, especially the older screen printers, right? The people who've been doing it for a while, they hate DTF because it feels different. It smells different. It feels thick. It feels like cardboard, blah, 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 blah. All these excuses. Okay. It's going to peel off. My customers won't like it. I'm sure you heard it all, right? So you are cranking out thousands of these shirts a day, right? What's your answer to that?
The customer doesn't care.
I knew you were going to say that.
Does it look good? Does it not? Some of the design matters, right? You can't put a big full circle ink print transfer on a shirt and expect it to feel good, but you can't do that with screen printing either. So it's in the design, but if it holds, if it outlasts the life of the garment, there's nothing to complain about, and the colors are right. It takes a long time. It took us a long time to get the color situation where we thought it was comparable to screen print. We did a ton of color matching based off of what we would call our stock 40 inks, PMS colors.
You building your ICC color profiles, right?
Sorry, Marshall, I can't hear you right now.
You can't hear me?
Oh, I got you back.
So this is you building your ICC color profiles, right?
Yes, and a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's just not the color combinations. It's what consumables you're using that affect the colors.
Right. So that's your film and your ink.
Film, ink, and powder.
Right. Yes. Right. Sorry, I forgot the powder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think a lot of people, they want to get into it. And they, of course, you know, if you went to the trade show, and Long Beach is coming up, and I'm sure these same equipment manufacturers are trying to sell their equipment, right? So somebody's really looking at DTF. What I tell people is find a reputable dealer, a reputable company, and just order your transfers until it gets really painful, and then start shopping for equipment. And that way you learn how to sell it, you learn how to heat press it, you learn how to do stuff. Find a really good partner for that first, learn the business, and then bring it in-house. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I went the other way because those partners weren't quite there yet, but
you were an early adopter guy, right? So, you know.
Yeah. But if you have no knowledge and want to get into it, I would find we have partners in all different industries, right?
Yeah.
Lean on somebody else. Okay, you have to give up a little bit of margin, but you know it's getting done right, and you're sending a quality product, because then you can build off of that.
Yeah. And you still order from Supercolor and some of these other folks sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. There's no need. You have to print everything yourself.
Yeah.
Again, the customer does not know what you're using, how you're getting things out, as long as it's quality. And it doesn't matter if I heat press it, or they contract screen print it, or we heat press patches on. Like it doesn't matter where they come from, as long as they look good and the customer's happy.
Right. And so who are your go-to outsource folks for DTF? Who do you use?
For our supplies, or
yeah. So where do you order your stuff from, and what do you do? Do you order stuff from GSG? Do you order stuff from Stalls or Supercolor? What do you do?
So we'll use Supercolor on certain types of transfers, and we buy our supplies from DTF Superstore.
Okay. And do you stock stuff in house? Like what's your kind of thinking about your supply chain, and how do you, like, if you're going to order something from Supercolor, let's say, is that because I don't want to run 150 names and numbers, or rather just order that out? What makes you order from somebody else?
When it's a high color count in a volume that will interrupt all of our other printing operations. The number varies.
So it's a disruptor.
Mm-hmm. If I have to use 2 machines for 2 days to get those transfers done, the cost analysis isn't going to trade off to having someone else make them and ship them in for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. All right. So we got some stuff here. So Dean says, got to check out Image Otter's new DTF ink offer. We'd love to get you some to test try, long as you're using a nice high surface tension film. There you go. Maybe Dean, you should reach out to Davis. I'm sure he'll try it. Hurley says, good morning. Brian says, perfect answer, Davis. The DTF small order and print on demand is so good for the industry, right? Exactly. And you do a lot of print on demand, right? And you're like the king of online stores. How many do you have now? Like 100 gazillion?
We're pushing 1,000 online stores.
1,000 online stores.
24/7.
That's just crazy. And how many of those are open at any given time?
Every single one of them.
But what I mean, they're actually ordering stuff.
30 to 40% are actively buying it at a given rate.
All right. So right now, 300 to 400 of your stores are ordering from you right now today.
Be sure they're in season.
Good. Dean says, but didn't take DTG to take up all those orders from Screen. Are you alluding that DTF is killing or going to kill off DTG?
I was waiting for this one. I don't think it's going to kill off DTG. What I think is it's going to change who buys DTG. And the entry-level person is going to be more afraid of a direct-to-garment than they are of a direct-to-film, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
Especially if they can just bring the transfers in themselves.
Yeah. Karen says, get over yourself. That's what he told me. Great. William says, hey. Brian says, another industry person is quoted as saying, I have 7 DTF printers. I pray that 5 of them print 5 days a week. Don't buy a printer until you're buying $10,000 a month in transfers. I think that was Stephen Farrig on Facebook the other day. Not that I read Facebook. I hate Facebook, but I think that was that. And Greg's here. Hey, Greg. So, all right. So what do you think most people don't understand about DTF? What's the most common misconception?
I think just a lot of people don't even know it exists yet. I mean, they're hearing about it, but
you mean the shop owner, or do you mean the customer?
The customer, the shop owner. The businesses aren't just they're not at trade shows, they're not following industries. They're not paying attention to what the TikTok moms and pops are doing that are eating away at their business. And it's just they're not as in tune with what all is going on. And it's a change in the industry that is coming. The smaller order revolution, I guess you may call it.
Yeah, Shopify, Etsy, print on demand stores. There's so many of these people. I mean, you can start a t-shirt business from your kitchen table so easy right now and not have to do any of the decoration at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And one of the things I think that DTF is so popular is the fact that it's just really easy to get into, and you could get a heat press on a card table in your garage and be knocking stuff out, right? And without really a whole lot of really training about anything.
Exactly.
And screen printing, it's a big learning curve. DTG, it's a pre-treatment issue for a lot of folks, right? And I know there's ways around that, so won't get into that. But DTF is just one step up above a Cricut. So it's like, I think it's really easy to do, right? And I think that's really kind of the entry level kind of thing. Although you're not entry level, wouldn't you agree that's what a lot of people are really thinking about?
They think it is. Also, a lot of the smaller machines are very finicky. So there's a big trade-off on equipment right now where you see, I'll just buy the entryest level printer and I'm going to make $1 million. Well, that's not really production level. That's more hobby level, and you're going to have more headaches with it because you're not running it daily.
I'll also tell you a big problem is I think a lot of people, when they're outsourcing their DTF transfers from somebody down the street, right, or in their city or whatever, it might not be the quality that they need, or it could be really inconsistent. And then they get burned from that. Then they realize why the people who really know what they're doing, they charge a little more, but everything they do is perfect, And I also think, and I've mentioned this before, I've been in retail stores, a sporting goods store or Old Navy or whatever, and half of the t-shirts from companies like Nike or whoever is transfers. Mm-hmm. We're not printing anymore. I mentioned a week or two ago on this show, I ordered a new Florida State think Seminoles are doing great. I have a new Florida State sweatshirt that I ordered from Nike, right? And it just says Florida State on it. It's a heat transfer, right? And it looks great. Okay. But I was kind of disappointed that it was a transfer, to be honest with you, but I wasn't surprised. Right. And it's really super clean. It's really crisp. And I think a lot of screen printers have a really hard time matching that level of crispness with the colors and how the edges line up and all that stuff. Right. And I think in certain situations, DTF just makes a superior image on the shirt. So
we were mediocre screen printers. I wouldn't say we were good at anything above a 2-color. And now we're printing everything with a lot more ease. But the artists do have to have a better understanding about colors and what you can and can't do.
Right. Okay. So, all right. Blah, blah, blah. So, hey, look, Marsh is here. So she's going to be a guest next week. She hasn't done her profile yet. That's okay. And so Marcia Derryberry, congratulations on your new position as the editor for Screen Printing Magazine. And we're going to have a chat with Marcia next week on this same show. Alan will be back next week. And so that's going to be a great discussion. So happy for her. And I think it's going to be great. And I can't wait to work with Marcia again. We used to do a bunch of stuff when she was at Impressions, and now it's like getting the gang back together almost, right? It's just going to be lots of fun.
It's exciting.
Right. And Kisa's here. So good morning, Kisa. She's been doing some stuff with DTF and it has been struggling. I'll admit it, and I'm not going to get into all that. And, but it's something that's really good for her and her business model. So I know she's very excited about it. So Kisa, please ask Davis whatever your big problem is. Ask him. He's got the answer, I'm sure. Dan says, here's a question. Is DTF an easy business to get into and run production for printing your own, or is it more complicated than we imagine? DTG was not as simple as a push button business. Is DTF a push button business?
You can buy the printers, but you can't buy the processes. And I think we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yes. Right. Well, here's the thing. DTF, just like DTG, just like your screen room, is really temperature sensitive, is really humidity sensitive, right? And I think a lot of people don't really realize that when they get into it, and they have issues with banding or color inconsistencies or stuff not really working as well as it should, because they've got 80% humidity or whatever, or it's no humidity, because it's the winter. And so one of the things I think you need to talk about here is the fact that you're in Pennsylvania, you've got lots of environmental swings. What have you done to solve that problem? Just so everybody kind of understands.
So we completely ripped out our screen room, rebuilt it, added another furnace, added a humidifier. In the summer, we had dehumidifiers that are running, and that's just the room alone. It stays at a constant 68 to 70 degrees, and we aim at a 40 to 60% humidity. And we are battling that right now. It was dropping into the low 30s the last couple nights because it was 15 degrees outside.
Right.
So
in the winter, your humidity just goes completely away.
Yes, gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have to work around it and fake it or put in fake elements.
Right. All right. Hey, Simon's here. Good morning, guys. Recovering here in California. Hey, it was good seeing you in Printing United, by the way. Dan says, hi, I posted while you're answering my question. Yeah, we answered it again. Cindy's here. Good morning. She's busy. That's awesome. Holiday stuff. Good seeing you, Cindy. Oh, oops on the profile, and hi, everyone, says Marcia. Kisa says, wise words from both you and Davis has helped. Davis is a wealth of knowledge. He is. That's why he's on the show. DTF is not a push-button process either. There are still the added layers of power and I think you mean powder, and the transfer process, and it still comes with headaches and issues. Really wish the process of pre-treat got the focus and attention it needed early on to allow for more success stories and less headaches. Yep. And I think a lot of people get into DTG and they just think they can handle everything with a heat press. Tip of the hat to Marcia. Congratulations from Richard. Good comment there. Karen says, I really like your suggestions to standardize sizes for DTF prints. Makes setting up standardizing pricing for quotes much easier. So why don't you talk about how you don't use a pair of scissors to trim around the thing. You do everything with horizontal or vertical cuts with a cutting table, whatever that thing's called, right? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we price based off of imprint, not the imprint size, but a general template, right? 4x4, 11x11, 11x14. And what that allows us to do is even if there's waste, we're still accounted for. But when there is that extra waste, instead of ganging them all together, we're cutting them 3 times as fast as somebody that gangs them together and has to weasel around with scissors. Also, what that does is when you put it on press, there's a straight line for the print.
Yeah.
And you don't have to try to make sure it's straight if the transfer is set up, ready to go.
So something that you guys might want to look at is I went to Davis's shop 2 years ago. When was that, Davis? 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. And for the Jerseys Adventures in Apparel Decorating series. So look that up. Go to the Jerseys YouTube channel, and you can see me stumbling around Davis's shop, and you can see the cutting table he's talking about. And one of the things that he does is they just take the whole roll of film that's been printed. They just take the whole roll off, and they put it onto this cutting table, and they feed the roll of film in, and then they just use these little cutters that only go in 2 directions to cut the film in little strips, and then the vertical things, right? And then they have squares or rectangles, right? And that allows them to use a laser to line everything up. It makes it so much easier, right? So, but you can see that in that show. Dean says it all comes down to the process and people being lazy to either learn or change things up to make improvements. Yep. Ray says, how are you humidifying your plant in winter weather? Lots of experience with this in Midwest winters. And I think they mean the building, not the palm tree that's in the corner of the office.
So we had a humidifier added to our furnace, and we have smaller humidifiers that we fill up by each machine. Too.
Like the one you might have in your baby nursery.
Yes, but much bigger.
Yeah, like a commercial version of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Marcia says, thanks, Richard. And look, Alan's here. Thank you, Davis, for jumping in. So Alan probably just landed in Detroit, and he's probably in an Uber, or maybe he's driving and about to wreck his car. Who knows what's going on? Alan, please don't wreck.
Happy to be here, Alan.
No texting and driving. All right. All right. So he is in an Uber. There you go. Right. Dean says, do straight cuts cost you more? Lots of dead space and wasted printable real estate. I think he already covered that, but go over that one more time for the people in the back row.
So they do cost more than ganging them together. But where you save is you've already charged for it because you're using standardized pricing. And they save on time of cutting because you're just going forward and back on a circular cutter. And they save on placement on press. So there's 3 places you gain back time. 1 place you lose a little square, some square inches of material.
And usually, if I remember correctly, all of your transfers are a 1/2 inch apart, right? And is it a 1/2 inch or is it an inch? What is it?
It's a 1/2 inch.
1/2 inch apart.
You can go tighter, but it makes it harder to cut them. We found that we ruin more trying to cut them tighter. So,
right.
And that 1/2 inch is built in. Don't worry.
Yeah. Right. Right. All right. Cool. All right. So let's go to the next topic real quick, which is workflow, which is a kind of what we were alluding to anyway. Right. So one of the things that I know from working with you over the years is you are the king of trying to get more out every day. Right. Trying to think about workflow, trying to think about what is the bottleneck, that type of stuff. So why don't you talk about some of the changes that you've made in your shop to try to maximize the amount of work that's going out?
Sure. So I actually went back and helped a couple days this week, which is a little unusual, but we had some high volume, quick turn stuff. And as I'm back there, I'm just watching, I'm observing while I'm helping, but I needed something at a printer to just clean it mid print. Well, that thing that was next to that printer was halfway across the room. And it was a swab or something really simple, right? So by the time I left that room, every supply was at every printer. So that's just a little process thing.
Yeah.
That saved.
Here you go, Richard. 2-second lean.
That saved 2 minutes every time something needed to be done.
Right.
And it's just having the basic stuff. The heat presses, same thing. Do they have tape? Do they have covers? Do they have pads in it? Are they supplied at every station?
And did you put everything exactly the same way in like a bin, so everything's exactly in the left corner or whatever?
Not quite that detailed because I didn't have the bins, but I at least got the products there.
Because you know how I would do it.
Uh-huh. So.
Where everything's exactly the same, and that way it doesn't matter who you are, you know where the scissors are, right? So, or whatever. So
exactly.
All right, that's good. And so talk about how I think one of the really great things about your business, and I want people to listen to this, is you've got a new employee. You do something that I think is the best idea to train new employees with that anybody in the industry does. So why don't you kind of walk people through, because we're talking about workflow right now. And I think this really teaches people workflow for the business doing your new employee hire program. What do you do, Davis?
We take them pretty much through the customer's journey and let them be the customer for a minute. And so when they come in and it's their first day, the first thing we do is just get the general information out of the way. They meet with me, they meet with the owner, and then we'll take them around and introduce them to everybody. But their next step isn't doing what their job is. They are going to walk through and go to the customer service agent and place an order for themselves. And then they're going to go over to the designer and pick out what they want on their garment. They're then going to see the designer move it to the production manager, who then what he does and what his job role is and how it moves back to the printers. From there, they're going to stick around in that print room until they see exactly how the process works. They're going to move to the presses with their order. They're going to watch how one's done. They're going to print their own garments. And then they move out to completion. And then they're actually going to see how it's done, how we get it to the customer, how we do quality, and what our last communication is with the customer.
So goes through all of these steps, and they're doing their own shop shirt that after they completed their training, now they're wearing their own B Graphic employee uniform that they created.
Exactly.
It's just genius.
And it really gives people a good understanding of what all you do. Right. Now, some people will say, well, I need the help right now. That's not necessary. I understand that, but it's not giving that person a fair shake to understand what you do at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's then the other part of it is they get to meet who else is in the company because they're sitting with them for 10 or 15 minutes. Like they're going to communicate.
Yeah. Right. And that's just great. And that takes one day, a couple of days. What's the time on that?
Yeah, typically a day. They'll go through the whole first day is that, and then they'll meet with their lead or whoever is training them in what they're doing, and then that's broken down into bite-sized pieces as well.
Right. So if you're watching this, right, think about how you can steal this idea for your shop, because I think it's probably the best training thing I've ever heard. Right. And I love it. And I talk about and I use Davis's shop as an example all the time, because I think a lot of people struggle with this exact thing. And I think it's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. Okay. So some comments here. Greg says scissors and intense ganging are false economy. All right. Good there. Adrian's here. Hey, Adrian. Congrats, Marshall, on the new role. Excited to see where you take Screen Printing Magazine. Love hearing what's happening in Davis's shop with DTF. That's great. Greg says Rich agrees, gold-plated tools. Yep. And Dean says Josh Kent with Sunfrog is an excellent source for workflow suggestions, and also in the DTF camp now. Workflow fixes can most definitely make for some massive savings as you scale more out in the same time and easy profits. Is this the shop that's in Michigan that sold all their equipment and just went totally DTF that Alan was talking about? I think that is. I'm not sure. And then Brian says, who is doing this training? So it's a new employee working with each department as the order kind of cycles through.
Yeah, so they're following around with the different members of the staff, and when they're done with one area, they take them over to the next person.
Right. Okay, cool. All right. So I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, GSG, real quick, and I want to show some stuff. So huge thank you to them for helping us keep the podcast going here. And so GSG is a excellent source for all your supplies and everything you need. You can go to gogsg.com. Here's their webpage, and you can see, let me go back real quick. They've got a brand new thing. I clicked too many times. No payments for 90 days, and you can take advantage of the December tax savings, right? You can get financing. They got a promo code right here. So if you're looking at buying some equipment, maybe a DTF printer, maybe a GSG could be the stop for you. So make sure you reach out and talk to them. And I also want to mention that they've got their Pulse magazine, which is one of these banners. Which one is it? Here it is. If you just click this button, this takes you right here. And this is their little mini sales catalog that they do every single month. And you can see that you've got all types of stuff in here that you can get. And so it doesn't matter if you've got a GSG distributor near you, they'll ship it to anywhere you are, right? So anyway, huge shout out to GSG. Thank you so much for partnering with us for the show. We really appreciate you. So, all right, back to Davis, right? So do you remember our third topic without looking? Cheater. You're just like Alan.
Family business.
Right. So running a family business. Right. So you guys have a family business here. So talk about, working with your dad. Dennis, by the way, is his name. Right. So talk about how that works and how, the struggles and the challenges and the victories and all of that. I think a lot of people here work with their spouse. Right. A lot of people here work with their kids, maybe. So how does it work there at B Graphics?
Let's start out by saying I was fired 4 times before I was 21. So not everything is always perfect, but a lot of that was immaturity.
How did you get the job back 5 times, I guess, right?
I guess I was good at sales.
Yeah.
And learned a little bit each time is probably the best way to go about it. But that was during some college years, and I was a different version of myself then.
Weren't we all?
Exactly. But I had to work 3 or 4 days a week while taking night classes and all that other stuff. So my schedule was a little bit different than in my shop. We had one in the college town I was at, and then the main one was 15 minutes or 20 minutes away. So there was a little more responsibility or proposed responsibility that was given to me at that time. Right.
Okay. So how do you guys work together and then not kill each other? What's the secret? Right. So I'm sure you get frustrated with him and he's frustrated with you and whatever, your mom and your wife are probably in the middle, how does it work?
So my parents are the owners, but we agree more than we disagree, which we kind of have like the same wavelength of things. My ideas may be, like you said, a little forward at times, a little too far out there. And he is a little more reserved on what we should do. For example, when I pandemic hit, and we lost a good chunk of our business, most of it actually, for a while there. And I told him I wanted to spend $15,000 and send it to China on a whim. And he looked at me like I had nine
Okay, and
heads.
hold on. And what did you buy in China during COVID? I think that's the key thing here.
We bought our first DTF press in 2020 while we were just the week after we opened up from being closed for 4 months.
Right. And I remember talking with you back then, and you were like, I have to like download Mandarin to read the instruction manual because it's all in Chinese.
Yeah. And he was laughing at me the whole way because I was working midnight to 6 a.m. to get it set up and try to troubleshoot. And we didn't have a digital background. So we didn't understand printhead technology real well.
Yeah. And what was your very first expensive mistake? This is something I think a lot of people enjoy hearing because everybody thinks everything's perfect with everybody all the time. And I can tell you it's not, right? So what happened right off the bat when you got your printer?
Smashed a printhead. $1,200 within the first week was down. And then we continued to smash 5 more in the next 5 months.
Yeah. But you didn't give up.
No, because we saw some promise to it. We could tell what we were doing wasn't necessarily the equipment's fault. It was our lack of knowledge in the process.
Right. So you're approaching it from ignorance, getting the knowledge to learn how to do everything, because at that time, nobody was doing this.
There was 2 other people in the country that I could even have a conversation with that were going through the same things I was going through.
Right.
And that I knew. I'm sure there was others, but there was only 2 that I knew of that I could send a Facebook message to and hey, are you seeing this? Or and the consumables were so bad. So some of the times it wasn't even our fault. It was just bad product.
Yeah.
So, but there was a lot of back and forth there, a lot of family. Like it was hot there for a little while. Like you just bought a $15,000 lemon, like, and then we put weeks into it of just hammering on it, trying to get it right. And we finally got something to work that we thought was acceptable. There were so many prints we threw out that were garbage or burned or undercured or all the above.
Yeah. And so you worked on that. So how did you get through that? And here's the thing, I think if it was not a family business, like if you had a business partner or you worked for Dennis and you weren't related, right? Do you think you would still have the same outcome that you have now?
I don't. I think it was me not giving up on it. He was a little frustrated with me. If it was just an employee telling him this, he probably would have pulled the plug. But I had this idea of where we were going, and it had nothing to do with that actual printer. It was an idea of where the business was going to go to.
Right. And which is with online stores.
Yes. Or direct to consumer is kind of how people are buying and where they're buying and how do you get in front of more people.
Yeah. So how do you keep things going in the right direction and stuff and not like, make it like a really, because you see each other on the weekends or whatever, like, do you not talk about business at dinner or on a Saturday when you're watching the football game? Like, where do you kind of compartmentalize? How do you handle it?
If we're not talking about business, we're mad at each other.
So you're doing it all the time then?
Yeah, there's constant idea generation and back and forth, and a lot of it's positive. It's like, hey, check this out. Look at this. It's like that's my person to throw these ideas off. So my wife and my wife can go without talking about it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I have a source that I can say, hey, did you see this? Or look how this is printed. And next thing I'm sending him TikToks or he's sending me things he's seeing. And it's just those text messages will come 10 o'clock at night or 6 a.m. or whenever. And it's just, check this out.
So I know so many people that are, husband and wife, or, father and son, father, daughter, whatever. And when they walk out of the office, they don't talk about it till they get back, because they want to concentrate on their family, their outside life kind of a thing. And that's kind of how they handle it. So I think it's probably a personal thing, maybe, and because they just don't want to be talking about this stuff 24 hours a day, and they need a break, because when you go home, you're not talking about, DTF
Yeah.
for shipping or some order or whatever. Right. And
When I go home, I've made it a point to put the phone down, see my 2-year-old kids, and give them the attention while they're awake, and then try to talk to my wife for a little while after that. And we then when it's time to go lay down, I'll get on social media or wherever, and then start perusing back through what I can find again.
Yeah. I can't believe the twins are 2. It seems like there are more. That's great. That's great. All right. Well, cool. Hey, all right. So we got our last topic here. Let's get into that, right? Which is eyes open, head up, right? So the reason why I want to talk about this is something happened just recently with your business. And I think, and the reason why I want to talk about it is I think a lot of people, they get really mired into, these are the orders that are going out, and this is what's going on, and Christmas is coming up, and they're just so engrossed in the looking at the bubble of their business, right? They're not paying attention to what's around them, right? And something happened in your area just recently, and you took advantage of it. So kind of talk about that real quick, and how you kind of think about things, because I think this is something that folks need to hear.
So I'll start off with saying you're less known than you think you are. And what we do here is we will run some pop-up print-on-demand shops, right? Where it's fast turn, or what people would call hot market, where something happened and they need to get the apparel back fast. And we did it for the local football championships were last weekend. And we did it for high school, yes. And we did it for 2 teams. Had tremendous success. Both teams did really well, and they had their gear. We print package delivered in 3 days. So they had their gear for the state playoff game. All their fans were decked out. I noticed there was one team that is 3 times the size of the ones we were doing, and they didn't launch anything. Like they weren't selling. Nobody was already working with them. They're 40 minutes from me.
So this is you snooping around, stalking.
Oh, I am watching everything, finding the organizations that are in charge of them, and just paying attention. And I made a play, and it was because they were looking for sponsors, right? They wanted people to help them pay for their kids to go play state football games. So I called them and offered to sponsor them. And then they asked about my business, or where I was, or who I was. Now, granted, I'm 25 minutes away. And we've been nominated from the newspaper, the best in the area, for 6 years. People had no idea who I was. And you
do the half mile bar race thing. There's a lot of publicity around your business, right? So
yeah, we do all kinds of different fundraising events and community giving and all kinds of stuff, but still had no clue who we were. So I got a chance, because I got them on the phone to give them money, that I got a chance to get their business. And I pitched what we did. I showed them what we just did the week before, that week that we were still producing, how fast we turned it, what we turned. And it just so happened when I called that they had a board meeting that night. I then created this really, I called it my best pitch ever, but it was a 2-minute video explaining what we did, showing screens, all kinds of stuff, that was personalized directly to them and their needs.
Did you use Loom? What did you use for that?
It's just like Loom. I can't think of Wistia, a soapbox.
Soapbox. Yeah, I'm a big Soapbox user also. Oh.
So, but it was pitched to them, to their name, personal video. They had it in time for their meeting. And I got a call that night that they agreed to go with us. Didn't know who I was at 2:00.
That's great. That's great.
And now their store is live and will be delivered here next week.
Yeah, and you're selling shirts right now for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the reason why I wanted to share the story is the fact that, you're actively looking for these opportunities all the time.
Yeah.
And you're not, and I think a lot of folks, your mom and dad kind of own the business, but you act like the owner, right? But you're not doing the work, right? And so many times when I talk to folks in this industry, the owner of the business is the one that's counting in shirts and receiving or burning screens or whatever they're doing. They're not doing things like this because they're doing what I call chore work, and this doesn't allow them the time to find these opportunities to, get their foot in the door and do some things, right? So talk about that a little bit. How do you create the time to be able to do these type of things instead of being like bogged down and doing the chore type activities?
Yeah, so that didn't happen overnight. 8 years ago, I was a graphic designer. I would tell them what screens to burn. I would sell the job. I would make sure the job was getting out on time. And as we grew, we had to hit a certain level, then we'd bring someone into that place, right? And as we changed our processes more to online stuff, then we had to build out all new processes and then have the positions that fill those, because I can't sell or oversee as many stores as we have if every question's coming to me. But what I can do is our sales reps can explain it. I can help close it for 5 or 10 minutes and really follow through with our promises and jump on calls when needed to help lock that stuff down. That really helped me unload some of the things. We brought people in to help take the smaller orders, the lower dollar value orders off. There's some tech like text messaging tech that we're looking at right now, that it's going to go to a CSR on her computer. So when they send text messages asking for something, there's specific people to answer those questions. I'm not answering every email. I'm not answering every Facebook inquiry. Actually, I'm not answering anything from social media.
So what you've done is you've replaced yourself with other people doing it, or you're using some sort of tool, software or something.
Exactly. So instead of sitting there responding all the time, I'll create a video, or we'll walk around and I'll see something cool. Like yesterday, we did it was a Red Kingdom video. It was all red hoodies stacked up everywhere, ready to go out. And I walked by, I snapped the video, I sent it to our lead designer. I'm like, hey, make me a TikTok with this song in the background. And I didn't care what it looked like. It just needed to be done. And I don't know how to do it. So she clipped it together and it looked awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So if you're watching this right now, throw Davis some questions. He needs a question. All right. So Dean says that Sunfrog is the shop. And then Cindy always wanted twins. Now, Cindy has like 50 kids, I think.
Oh, goodness.
So I don't know how she didn't have any kids. Twins. So I think that's very interesting. So I'm just teasing Cindy. So anyway, you're finishing up your holiday crush right now. You guys are super busy, right? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so our numbers are up. The business is running smooth, though. Granted, we know we have rush orders in for some of this hot market stuff, but it's not frantic. It's not overwhelming. We worked a little bit overtime this week, but when I say a little bit, I mean like 1 to 3 hours a person in production. Nothing like running second shifts, and it's smooth and stuff is getting out on time.
Brian wants to know how many employees you have.
Anywhere from 19 to 24, with the later half being part-time fluctuators.
And you do part-time moms, college kids, right? That type of stuff.
Interns, interns that we bring in from the local university. That's a great program to where you get kids in. We have them coming in 3 days a week. Work release high school students is a new thing I found about. I didn't know that these kids can leave high school at 11:30, but they're pretty wild on a heat press. People whose kids are in school during the day. It's a great situation to have that fluctuation.
Yeah, good. By the way, Cindy she has just 9 kids, by the way.
Whoa.
And then
God
Hurley
bless you.
says that he's a twin, lots of trouble, lots of fun. My wife's a twin, by the way. And Dean says, Davis, are you doing any testing for your consumables in early Q1?
Dean, there's always a printer that is willing to test consumables. So we have 4 of them active, but we're always willing to clean, drain, and really put other things to the test depending on what's available right now.
Okay, good. There you go. So, all right, we got a couple minutes left. So what do you think going into 2024? Is there anything that you've recently added to your lineup, whatever your workflow or how you're doing things or whatever, that's generating some success that people really need to focus on?
So we do all heat pressing, and we've seen success with patches. If you're not using them, it's an easy add-on. And it's a nice piece. The one thing that we do and we do well are templated custom art. And I don't know if people are offering that, but that helps us in the production process. It helps us speed things up where we can get ideas to the customer, and that it doesn't have to go back to the artist, back to the customer, back and forth 15 times.
So you'll have like a baseball design or 4, and you just put in Ravens or Trojans or whatever, and then it's off to the races.
Here's 10, pick 2, boom.
Right. And earlier today, we were talking about your latest love of Trace Journey, right? And how you've been solving some stuff. So, I want to talk about my newsletter, but so like talk about Midjourney a little bit, but I want you to talk about that Trace Journey and how you're using that and how big a difference it's made in your life.
So I'm going to spin off by saying, 1, we are subscribers to Marshall's podcast.
Yay!
I signed up for it, but I'm not the reader. I am, but I'm not the main reader. Our designers get this podcast. They talk about it. They see what he's doing. They try it themselves, and it's bringing inspiration to what we can do without me having to initiate it, if that makes sense.
Right.
I don't have to say, hey, this is what I saw, do this. They'll come up and say, hey, this is what he's doing. Here's what we can come up with. And it's if you're not using it, you probably should, because it's a different source of inspiration, and it's worked out really well. And then he's using or talking about Trace Journey the one time. And if you're not familiar with it, I don't want to give away too many secrets, but you should really put some time into that, because there have been massive speed improvements by our designers, and some of the struggles, or what I would call pain in the butt artworks, that has really been minimized.
So Trace Journey is a separate program from Midjourney, and it kind of like an add-on plug-in kind of thing. And then what it does is it uses AI. So when you've got a low-res file, right, it kind of says, okay, here's this area that's blue, and you got a low-res file. What it does is it adds in the information and blows the image up to a larger file that you can use. But it also, in Midjourney, allows you to download that piece of art as a vector file. So you don't have to take it into Live Trace or do anything. It's already a piece of vector art, right? And then also you can take a file not through Midjourney into Trace Journey to blow it up or make it vector also, right? So when you're doing a sponsor logo back and they give you a bunch of crap, because they always do, you can throw that through there in about a couple seconds. Now you got a perfect file that you can use, right? So, and It's
It works.
$99, but Davis is actually using the power plan because they use it so much that actually because it's based on GPU time, right? So,
And it's worth every penny.
yeah. So Mid Journey is art creation, right? Trace Journey is actually you doing stuff with that file. So don't get it confused because the journey part of it, I think, confuses people a little bit. So, all right. Anyway, so thanks for being here, Davis. Really appreciate you. And
Absolutely.
have
Hopefully I helped somebody out today.
Yeah. What you got big plans this weekend? What are you doing?
So when you said about community, we have a light up night in my little town, and we are creating a float for it. And it's going to have fake snow and lights. And I am dressing up as Buddy the Elf. And we are going to float through this town and hand out hot chocolate in this small, quaint little town on tomorrow.
Yeah. So hold on. So it's a one float parade. It's just you?
No, there'll be, I mean, I plan to be the show, but there's going to be other people.
Yeah. Okay. So. Great. All right. And all right. So Dean wants to know, are you using Epson heads?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And here we go. Frank says thoughts on specialty films for DTF like glitter.
That's a fun one. I don't like a ton of specialty stuff yet. And I don't like it because I have to do a ton of work to swap out the films, and there's loss when you're changing out the films.
So
I'm working more on high production.
Or you had the right project, then you would do it.
If I'm getting 400 or 500 foil prints and I need to do it myself, I would buy the foil or I'd buy the glitter. But for smaller run, which is a lot of what we do, I don't like the idea of the specialty. Okay. Unless you have another printer that can just print specialty and you have the volume to do it.
Yeah, great. Ray says, great show. Thanks. And then Frank says, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. You too, pal. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for us. So thank you so much, Davis. Appreciate you. And big shout out to Alan. And we'll see Alan back here next week with Marsha Derryberry. And we'll be talking all about her takeover for Screen Printing Magazine and how she wants to dominate the world. That'll happen next week. So anyway, have a great weekend, and everybody root for Florida State to beat the Louisville Cardinals tomorrow in the ACC championship, so your friend Marshall can see his team in the playoffs. So we'll see you guys later. Thanks.